Welcome, everyone. Доброго вечора всім. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. I'm Oля Vovnish, and I have the privilege to serve as the CEO of Ivan Franco Homes. It's my great pleasure and honor to host this session tonight, Building Our Future Campus of Care. A few housekeeping items before we get started. Everyone has been muted, and there will be an opportunity for questions after our two speakers finish their presentations. Please feel free to enter all your questions to the chat. You can find it at the bottom or, in some cases, top of your screen. This session is being recorded and will be posted on the Ivan Franco Homes website. You can reshare it with those who were not able to attend. We will end at 8 o'clock. Your feedback about this session is very important, so please take a minute to complete the survey, which will be emailed to you after the session. We thank you in advance. So, building our future campus of care. As many of you probably know, that we are planning to have a groundbreaking ceremony for the new campus of care next month on October 27th. And we've seen a lot of interest in the community to our project. People want to know how we got to this point. So we decided to hold this session and share the latest information with you. Our board, chaired by George Rohota, building committee, and the whole team of professionals have been working very hard over the past 5 years to bring the campus of care vision to reality and ensure that the best care environment can be built for seniors in our community. A number of companies wanted to work with us on this project, and we chose the best ones. I am pleased to introduce our speakers to you. Matt Galvin is the co-founder and partner of G-architects and specializes in design for aging with particular focus on long-term care. He recently led the development on 1,344 long-term care beds through the ministry's enhanced funding program. Matt's extensive experience spans 5 Canadian provinces, and he brings innovative concepts and best practices from one jurisdiction to another. Matt and his team at G-architects are dedicated to understanding their clients and the challenges they face. They are sensitive to the fact that a long-term care home is a building where people, such as staff and residents, live or spend a huge amount of time, and they always look for design ideas that can enhance the quality of life for residents, staff, and visitors. Welcome, Matt. Also with us today, we have Massimo Perricone, co-owner and vice president of Percon Construction, Inc., a construction management company with over 25 years of experience that has successfully delivered over 170 projects. The company has significant construction expertise across multiple sectors, including public sector facilities, community centers, hospitals, healthcare facilities, long-term care homes, and assisted living facilities. Massimo, together with his brother Frank, are known for their hands-on, collaborative, and cooperative approach, partnering with their clients to assist them in realizing their project vision and objectives. And also, I would like to introduce one more person, our project manager, Gary Out, who will moderate our Q&A session today. Gary has over 20 years of experience in seniors housing in both the public and private sectors. He has transacted in over $3 billion in real estate investments over his tenure focusing on long-term care to independent living. For Ivan Franco Homes, he's our internal project manager and has assisted with government approvals, financing, rezoning, and design. He has assisted us from early procurement and design stage and will continue, hopefully will continue with us until we open our new 160-bed Center for Aging and Longevity in the spring of 2026. Now I would like to invite Matt to start his presentation.
Thank you, Olya, and thank you for that kind introduction, and good evening, everyone. I'm very happy to be here tonight to share some information about the project. Bear with me 1 second as I share my screen. Is that working for everyone? Yep. Excellent. Thanks, Mass. Okay, so we're here tonight to share some information about the design and the process and the journey that we've been on working with Ivan Franco to get us to a new long-term care home for the campus. This image that we're looking at is the future of the back half of the Winston Churchill site. Just on the left-hand side of the page, you'll see the existing assisted living building. This is the drop-off area at the front of that building. And what we're here to talk about tonight is the design and the construction of the new 160-bed long-term care home, which will be connected to the existing building by a physical link and located in the back part of the property. It's going to be a home primarily for 160 residents, although it is a long-term care home. It's not a retirement or assisted living building. This is for licensed long-term care beds under the Ministry of Long-Term Care. There will be 82 private bedrooms and 39 shared suites, which would have 2 residents in each suite. There are a number of very exciting design enhancements in this project that I'd like to share, but one of them actually is the quality of the 2-person rooms are quite nice and exceed the minimum standard of the Ministry of Long-Term Care, in that each bedroom in a 2-person room, the sleeping area that a person has actually does feel like a private space. And there's the 2 sleeping areas share a vestibule and a washroom, but there is a good deal of resident privacy and dignity even in those 2-person rooms. As this is obviously intensifying the site with a lot of new both residents, but then staff and visitors. There's going to be 74 additional parking spots added, and I'll show where those are happening just a little further into the presentation. So this is a site plan drawing. This is like we're flying in a helicopter over the new campus. Winston Churchill Boulevard is on the right-hand side of the page, and you can see the 2 roads that are currently there that access the existing building, and the new long-term care home again at the back, connected to the new building, or the existing building, sorry, with a link. The link will be like an enclosed corridor. It's not just a covering, so you'll be able to walk from one building to another when completed. At a high level, I just want to explain the traffic patterns on the site. I'm sure that's maybe something that will be of interest to people, especially those currently living in the assisted living building. Both of the curb cuts onto Winston Churchill and the roads that are planned are all wide enough for 2-way traffic. But just to simplify the diagram here, I'm just sort of describing what would be the major traffic flows. So the proposal is to essentially build a ring road around all the way around both the existing building and the new proposed long-term care building. That'll work as a vehicle path, but it also creates a really great fire route to get firefighter access to all parts of the building. The blue arrow shows the main visitor path of travel. If a visitor were coming to approach the new long-term care building, they would enter off of Winston Churchill, past the drop-off area of the existing building, and then there's going to be a new drop-off area and a welcome zone just for the long-term care home. There'll be a covered canopy, a covered weather protecting roof where a car can pull underneath and a visitor can get out. And there are a couple of parking spots for convenience in that drop-off area. A visitor's car then would proceed around that loop and then could either head to the parking or it could head back out to Winston Churchill. The staff traffic, which I'm showing in the pink arrow, would probably bypass that drop-off area and proceed directly to the new staff parking in the back. It is spaced a little bit away from the building, but part of that is we are respecting the historic cemetery that's in the back of the property. So the design is not disrupting that. So that's sort of why the staff parking is located where it is. And then staff parking, again, they could either proceed to the top road or to the what we would call the back of the building. And then that's the service route, which is shown in the red arrow, shows that trucks again could come off of either location. But there is definitely a back to the building that addresses the commercial properties to the south. And that's where loading traffic, things like garbage trucks, food delivery trucks would be going to. Those are located, I think, quite strategically, some distance away from the existing building. So the noise generated by that loading area has been thoughtfully considered. So just zooming in a little bit on the outdoor space around the existing building, there's 3 main outdoor spaces. I already noted and talked a little bit about the drop-off area, where the canopy and the visitor drop-off loop is. There's going to be an opportunity there for a landscape feature in the center of that roadway. A really positive design feature in the project is the large and very nicely landscaped secure resident outdoor space, which is right in the middle. That is a secure space in that we'll have a fence around it for the safety of residents, but it'll be accessible by all the residents in the home, and is accessed through the public space or the common amenity space on the ground floor of the home. We think that'll be a really wonderful space for the community. And then there's another courtyard now on the left side of the page, on the west side of the campus, another dedicated outdoor space for a special unit that is on the ground floor of the building. So in terms of, in very broad strokes, of how the building is organized and what's inside the building, I mentioned that this is a long-term care building, which is very regulated by the Ministry of Long-Term Care. And typically you see neighborhoods or groupings of residents of 32 residents in a neighborhood. So the 160 residents of the new Ivan Franko long-term care home will be organized into 5 neighborhoods of 32 residents. On the second and the third floor, each of those floors will just be neighborhoods, with 2 neighborhoods per floor. The ground floor will have a special neighborhood that will have special functions and special spaces to provide support to the staff and providing the specialized care in that unit. And the remainder of the ground floor is the staff and administration space, things like the kitchen and the laundry and the offices for all the staff who will work in the home, and the common amenity in the public zone. That's what I've identified in the yellow color on these simple map diagrams. And you can see that the public zone goes from the front door, wraps around the courtyard and addresses the public courtyard. And then also there's a public path to the physical link that will connect to the existing building. Olia asked me to talk a little bit about how we got here, what the process has been, what the journey we've been on is. So I'll give a little bit of information about how we approached this project and what our process and our timeline was. And then I'm going to give a bit of a highlight reel of some of the exciting design features that made it into the project at the end of that design process. And then we'll show some renderings that we can actually get a bit of a sense of what the outside of the building will look like. So we joined the team in the spring of 2022. And at that time, we really began getting up to speed. The board of Ivan Franko have been doing a lot of work over the previous years, getting some conceptual design work done and some functional programming work done. And the first thing we had to do was get ourselves up to speed on all that work that had been completed to date. And then we really set ourselves to working with the board and all of the staff to narrow down and identify what the real vision, the core vision of the project was, what the budget had to be, and what the key design features that needed to be preserved in the project were. Our firm does a lot of long-term care design. And for me, that's actually my personal specialty and my passion. And we have a design process. While every home is unique and every project is unique, we do have a few key processes and principles that we believe are really important to design a building of this type. And a big part of it is that we have to have a very collaborative process. That means working with the clients who are actually going to own and operate a facility for 40 or 50 years, providing care to the community. We really need to listen to those experts and listen to all the voices that have value to add to make sure that what we're designing is going to support what the community needs for 40 years. We need to begin with the end in mind, and that means very carefully planning out the work. That's the importance of having a vision and a plan to carry out the work. We also think it's very important to be current in research. We used to say that we were evidence-based, and now after the pandemic, we like to say that we're very also focused on the lessons that have been learned through the pandemic. But it's important as designers for a healthcare facility to dedicate ourselves to understanding the challenges of a healthcare facility and try to the best of our ability, make sure that we're keeping current, looking at evidence, and implementing lessons learned. And finally, we always work to balance what we call a triple bottom line. So looking at the construction cost or the capital cost, the energy use of a building, and the operational cost of design decisions. A lot of times the actual cost of building a building is dwarfed by the energy and the operational cost over decades of operation. So it's important to make sure we're making good long-term decisions. We also have core design principles that we again bring to every long-term care project. Some of these are really important for especially our younger staff who may have a hard time imagining themselves ever in a long-term care facility. I like to remind our staff we're all just one fall off our bicycle away from needing nursing care. And it's important to ask ourselves, can you live here? And so I always ask our young architects, like, would you be able to live here? We have to be really sensitive to the fact that this is a building that people spend a lot of time inside. And I always say people very intentionally. I don't mean residents, and I don't mean staff. I mean both. I mean people, human beings spend a huge amount of time inside these buildings. We need to be aware of that. We also talk a lot about resident-centered and staff-supportive design principles, and those two are together and inextricably linked. They're like macaroni and cheese or bacon and eggs. You have to have the two of them in the same sentence. Because design that supports staff, again, going back to evidence-based design, staff supportive designs actually have real outcomes on residents' quality of care. Things like there's been very interesting research that shows the importance of staff retention, of the same staff staying in a home, getting to know a resident, getting to know their habits and their behaviors and their care needs, and how important that is to the outcome of resident. And we feel that it's important that the built environment support the staff as much as possible to foster those relationships and to keep as an example, staff retained and satisfied in the long term. And then finally, again, coming a bit related to the fact that it's a building people spend a lot of time inside, the design has got to support variety. It can't all be the same. We've got to consider a variety of daylight and views so that you can actually understand the change of daylight over the course of seasons, over the course of the day. And we need to support people's different abilities and preferences and needs. So that's where we approach the project. We use a lot of different tools and techniques to get there. It's really important to note that design is a team sport. This occurs from a huge team of professionals, not just at G-architects, where we had several professionals working full-time on this project, but we also had a huge team of specialist sub-consultants, everything from structural engineers, electrical engineers, specialist kitchen designers for the central kitchen. So we all work together. We use a lot of different tools, and you can see how a project evolves from very simple diagrams to sketches, trying to imagine what it could look like, to a simple shape, to finally we get to a point where we have the building essentially in a 3D model inside the computer, a little version of the building. So that's where we got to until the fall of 2022, and that's when the Ministry of Long-Term Care surprised the province with an enhanced funding policy that offered up considerable additional funding for projects that were able to start construction in the summer or fall of 2023. So that's when the team then began on a very intensive period to make sure that we could achieve those timelines and take advantage of the additional funding. So we then had to really work through a lot of approvals. That's a very important and very complex part of any construction project. The Ministry of Long-Term Care has all of their own approvals. We had to get through a series of design approvals from the ministry. And then not only the city of Mississauga, but also the region of Peel have a number of approvals that we need to get through to get to a completion. This was also the timeline when we worked to bring Percon and Massimo to the team. We assisted the board in tendering the role of the construction manager because we knew with the timelines that we were dealing with that we needed to bring a constructor into the team and work collaboratively with the time that we had to make sure that we were going to come to a great result. And I think we were all very delighted that Percon succeeded in that competitive process and has been a terrific partner in this process from the very beginning. Very enthusiastically working with us and understanding the challenges that we had, that there was a firm deadline from the province to achieve additional funding. And there's been it's been a really successful collaboration thus far. So we got to a point and it just in the summer of 2023 where the approvals were in place and we were able to tender the work. That's when Massimo began his huge challenge of going out to all the very, very many individual trades that are needed for the work and actually tendering the work. And then now we're in a position where here we are in the fall of 2023, the tender is complete and the construction is commencing. So at the end of that process, we started from a blank page, and now we have an extremely detailed set of documents that the Percon team are using to actually construct from. And very exciting, what made it through that process, well, you know, there were a lot of hard decisions to be made. This is in a climate of rising costs and limited funds, and not everything on the wish list made it to the finish line. However, this building is really very exciting to us. There's a lot of wonderful enhancements for the community that have made it into the project. First off, it's worth noting, it's sort of assumed for me because all my buildings are like this, but I want to give you assurance that the building will be designed to be age-friendly and very accessible throughout. And a building of this type is mandated by the building code to have a very high level of fire safety and will be fully sprinklered. But beyond those sort of basic elements, the building also exceeds the Ministry of Long-Term Care's minimums throughout. It has a lot of really great design features, including a number of post-pandemic design features that will actually improve the infection prevention and control design of the home. For example, smaller groupings of residents to have for less blending and mixing, and more and better access to outdoor space. Those are some key lessons learned we had through long-term care in the pandemic. It's a very resident-centric design. I mentioned the enhanced quality of the shared resident bedrooms, the wandering rooms that are within the home. And there's a lot of great common amenity spaces, like a chapel, a family celebration room, a welcome lounge, and of course the great courtyard. And there's also, as I mentioned, the specialized care unit that will care for members of the community that need a bit of extra care beyond normal long-term care. And there's also end-of-life suites with a separate entrance and private gardens, which again, I think are filling a really wonderful need in the community. And finally, before I turn the microphone over to Massimo, there's a few diagrams of the outside of the building. This is the welcome zone. You can see the covered vehicle drop-off where a car can slip underneath. This is an image of the terraces that are at the end of each cluster of 16 residents. So each group of 16 residents gets to share an outdoor space, which is generous by common long-term care practice. And this is a view of the courtyard inside the security line. And you can see it's going to be a very nice, bright, very accessible environment, very nice and safe. The thing that I really like about courtyards from an age-friendly perspective is the building itself actually provides a lot of windbreak and sunbreak. So it creates a microclimate that's really positive for elders. And with that, I'll turn it over to Massimo to give us an update on where the construction is heading.
Thanks, Matt, and thank you everyone for for inviting me to speak. Percon Construction, myself and Frank are very excited to be your construction managers and your partners throughout this journey. As Matt mentioned, we're excited and to be working again with Matt. We currently have over 800 long-term care beds under construction throughout Ontario. And what drew our office to this project is the location of the project. We've got staff that could easily manage this project, but it's very similar to a number of other homes that we've built over the last 25 years. So currently, we've tendered all the trade packages. There was about 55 of them, and we've currently awarded roughly 55% of them. And those are predominantly early works, civil, superstructure, and building envelope trades. Over the next 60 days, we'll work with Ivan Franco to make sure that we start tackling the interior finishes and ensure that all the wish list and the special products that they want to incorporate into the building make it in. So currently, for those that live on campus, you'll see we started erecting hoarding and fences at the beginning of the month, and we've currently been able to start the decommissioning of that existing farmhouse that's located on the west side of the property, and we've also commenced taking down all the trees, the orchard trees, and all that stuff. So within the next week to 10 days, we'll start stripping the site and start prepping it for the civil earthworks to start building the foundations of the facility. What we did when we first met Ivan Franco and the team, we were very cognizant and we were very respectful to ensure that we gave the existing facility enough space that you could still enjoy the outdoors. So for some of you, you'll see that we've erected hoarding to ensure that the new construction area is fenced off and safe from all the residents. But we've also been able to maintain the kind of courtyard and the circular area with the existing playground there for the residents as kind of a little gathering point for, if it's a sunny day, you guys, the residents and the staff can go out and enjoy the great outdoors. Predominantly for the beginning of the construction project, we will be utilizing the north entrance into the site. And that will maintain day-to-day activities, deliveries for the existing facility. And as we kind of go through construction and start building the roads, we will start embarking on a process to start building out the south portion of the roadways that link out on the south side of the property. When we first looked at this project internally, we knew that we had to build this project in multiple phases. So when we first met with the Ivan Franco, the construction team, and Matt, we were very cognizant and we wanted to ensure that we never handcuffed the facility as far as their ability to maintain their day-to-day activities. So you'll see that as construction continues along the west side of the property, as we start bringing in all the necessities and the services, those will be done in phases. And we'll be working with the facility to ensure that they're done in a manner that does not handcuff or impact the residents or the facility. So currently, we anticipate starting we've started the earthwork and the demolition. So the fall and winter will be predominantly heavy civil construction and the foundation work. And we're hopeful that by early Q1 2024, you'll start seeing the erection of the structural steel and precast slabs. As Oli had mentioned before, our goal is to start handing over the facility Q1 of 2026. We're a family-oriented company. I have an elderly mother. who is at an age right now where, you know, we're going to start talking about facilities like this as she gets older. And we share in Matt's vision that we want to make sure that we build these facilities so that we envision ourselves living in there at one time. And we truly are excited to be part of the team. As Matt said, we were brought on in the spring, and we were given a mandate to drive the bus. And I think we've been driving the bus and leading everyone and answering any questions. And you'll start, you know, if there's any issues that the residents have, Olia and Gary will tell you that we're very easy to approach and ask the question, and we'll answer it in a timely manner. So that's it. Hopefully we intend to have this superstructure fully complete by probably the summer of 2024, Q2, Q3, and then we'll start looking to close up the envelope so that we can start tackling the finishes in Q1 of 2025, which will give us roughly about a year to start the finishes and then get the facility to a point where then Ivan Franco can start doing their reviews with the Ministry of Long-Term Care so that we can open up the door and start accepting new residents. That's it on my end. Oli, I'll pass it back to you if, so that yourself and Gary can continue with the presentation.
Thank you very much, Matt and Massimo, for your great presentations. It's greatly appreciated. Now I would like to invite Gary to moderate the Q&A part. I see a lot of questions for Matt. Gary, please.
Perfect. Thank you, Olia. And thanks again, Matt and Massimo, for a very fruitful presentation and dialogue on the project. I myself, as a project manager, are also very delighted to be a part of the Ivan Franco team. It's a very exciting project. The community is really behind it. The government is behind it. We think it's going to come out and turn out to be a really nice project in the end. So, a bit of housekeeping. We have about probably maybe 25 minutes for some questions. As Olia mentioned earlier, on your screen there is a question or a Q&A tab. You can click on that and present your question. We'll go through them in sequence. In the event that we don't answer all of them, because we are, finishing the presentation at 8 o'clock tonight, we do have the questions in our data bank here, and we'll endeavor to answer them and maybe email responses out after the meeting as well. So why don't we take the first question then? Most of these questions will either be design related or maybe construction related or operations, and either Matt or myself or Massimo or Olia will respond accordingly. Okay, let's start with the first one. Question number one, will there be a sidewalk along the whole ring road? Matt, do you want to maybe address those, if you could?
Sure. There will be sidewalks and walking routes all the way around the campus, not necessarily always right along the ring road. We actually work to separate pedestrian traffic and service vehicle traffic as much as we can. So there aren't sidewalks back where the loading area is, but you would be able to take a future walking route all the way around the campus.
Perfect, thank you. Next question for Matt again. Put him on the hot seat here. What makes you the most proud of your work on the Ivan Franco project?
Oh, that's a challenging question. To pick just one thing, to be honest, I think I've outlined that there's a lot of really terrific design enhancements in this project. I mean, what's been really exciting for me is just supporting the vision that Olia and the board of Ivan Franco have, which is to invest in your community, to do more than the minimum, and to really make a special home. It's really exciting to be part of a project like that. And there are too many things to list them all. But if I had to say one thing that I think is unique that I'm really excited about, it is that courtyard is going to be really nice. And I think the way that the courtyard is not only designed in terms of its landscape and its function, and there's been a lot of thought put into all the different activities that it can support. We've also put a lot of attention into the windows around the courtyard and how the residents can actually enjoy the courtyard when the weather is in the winter months, when they're not actually out there, or if their mobility is actually preventing them from getting down to the courtyard. Really trying to make sure that that courtyard is part of the daily life of everyone.
Very nice. I can attest as part of the team, in working with the G team, they are highly engaged with the Ivan Franco team, and so it's a real delight again to work with the experts. Next question. What's the primary purpose of the connector between the two buildings?
There's a few reasons, I suppose. The two buildings are going to work independently. They're different operationally, and they've also got a lot of different rules that separate them. So, for example, if there's another pandemic or an outbreak situation, the long-term care home has to be able to completely button up from a security perspective. But I think the intent is that in good times, it's to support a community feel. The idea of residents from the assisted living side being able to come and participate in events in the courtyard seamlessly. And we're also looking to find some locations for display, like a museum type space for many of the Ukrainian artifacts that the home has.
And Matt, not to put you on the spot, but that walkway, just to give it some parameters, it's about is it 90 feet maybe between the two buildings, or what was the length?
Yeah, give or take. I think it was in that range, 25 or 30 meters, about 100 feet.
Yep. Perfect. Thank you. Next question. Matt, did the Ivan Franco site have special opportunities or challenges for you?
Absolutely. The challenge is really rooted in the fact that it's a building behind a building is sort of a way to describe it. The existing building is kind of up near the road, and you had a lot of land and space behind it, more than enough space to build a building. But that's actually a specific topic that causes a lot of consternation among municipal planners. And it just has to do with how water and sewer gets to buildings, how firefighters find the right building if they've been called to an address. So that was a significant challenge, working very closely and with the support of the city of Mississauga and the Region of Peel. But that was a unique challenge to the site, and something I think we managed to do successfully, and that we've unlocked the value. I think we all know that real estate in Toronto has certainly hit a premium, and you had lots of space back there. So it was effort well spent to work with the authorities to permit that.
Great. Just if the families or community members don't recall, the Ivan Franco parcel in Mississauga is just a little over 10 acres. So the LTC section that Matt is talking about that's in the back is just a little over 6 acres, just to give you some concept on sizing. Next question. Given the potential disturbances like noise during the active phase of construction, how do you plan to ensure the quality of life and comfort of the residents of the retirement residence? Could you share specific safety and convenience measures that will be in place? Massimo, potentially that would be your question.
Yeah, we can answer that. So for those that live within the facility or haven't seen it since we've erected the fence, we have closed off the construction area away from the residents. We do work within the municipal bylaws bestowed upon us by the city of Mississauga. We do have a lot of experience working with the city of Mississauga and Region of Peel. So you will never see our activities go past the bylaws, with the exception of possible concrete pours for slabs, which tend to go past the 7 o'clock timeline. But we will be very respectful and give the facility ample notice as to when those activities will take place. You will see that we'll install dust protection and erosion sediment control protection that will prevent dust from encroaching into the areas that are being occupied. Obviously, when there's windstorms and stuff like that, we'll be cognizant to make sure that the site is watered down to prevent that. Again, we're very open. If, you know, things happen, we're there to clean it up or to assist the facility as best as we can. We understand, and when we first looked at this project, we wanted to make sure that our activities to build Matt's vision did not impact the day-to-day activities of the existing facility, right? Again, when not a lot of people like change, right? And as constructors, we're always the one that come in and make a mess of things. But at the end of the day, we promise we'll make it look pretty. Our main goal on this project is to be respectful of the residents that are there. The one thing that I think sold our company to Ivan Franco and the board, and we do have a lot of experience working with Matt, is that we are very hands-on. We're there to guide everyone, residents, clients, architects through the project, and we try to ensure that the activities and the construction is completed in a manner that does not impact the residents that are there.
Great, thank you for that. We again, we appreciate Percon's passion to the job as well. Next question, probably towards Massimo here. Could you shed light on the various factors that have the potential to influence the construction completion date? How confident is your team in completing the project within this time frame? Are there any foreseen circumstances that could potentially cause delays? And if so, how is your team prepared to manage these delays?
So from when we got brought on here, we worked with Matt and Gary to put together an action plan that would deliver this project in a timely manner. So what we did is we allowed at the beginning Matt's team to put together a document that we were able then to go and solicit pricing on. We've been able, from the beginning of June, when the tender documents were released, and as of the end of this month, we've been able to award and purchase any long lead items that are required on this project. Obviously, we've all lived through COVID. You know, if something does come up, we have been able to maneuver and work through a number of issues over the last 2.5 years. We're quite confident that because of the way that we've been able to tackle the tender process and award a lot of the long lead items early on in the project, we will have them available to us when the building is ready to receive them. The other thing too, as Gary mentioned, it's a 6-acre site. A lot of the projects that we work on, we don't have the luxury of having all this open land where we can store material. So that's one positive of being on such a big parcel of land. We can, if the material is ready, we've got the area to store it. And then with us having possession of it, we can install it once the building is ready.
Great, thank you. Matt, what is the most important message you'd give to a not-for-profit organization that would like to build a new long-term care home?
Well, I guess I'd give 2 key pieces of advice. One, and this isn't going to be a surprise to anyone who's gone to the grocery store lately, everything has gotten a lot more expensive. And I think that's just a reality that you need to be prepared for. There aren't a lot of deals to be had. There's a lot of construction activity happening in the province. there's labor shortages, material shortages, and it's a challenge. So I think that's just one message is to not dream big without a very realistic plan. You have to start at the very outset with a route to access to financing and a vision that is supported by a business case. I think that's really important. And then the other thing I would say is to make sure that you get a team of the right experts. It is a very particular thing. A long-term care home is governed by complex funding and operational requirements and an act of parliament, and it is different from building a retirement home or a condo or a hotel. And it's important to have a whole team, from project managers and finance advisors through to the designers and the construction professionals that they know the nuances of long-term care.
Great. Just to piggyback on that, to Matt's point, the cost is just keeps going up and up and up. It doesn't seem to stop here. But the challenge is on the other side with the government financing, whether that's the capital dollars or the operating dollars. Sometimes it doesn't seem to correlate with those inflations. So it's a challenge with costing going up and revenue or ministry dollars remaining the same. Thank you. Next question. Matt, how is the Ukrainian culture reflected in your design?
Oh, in many details throughout the design. That was a topic of discussion, of course, with the stakeholders from the very beginning, of trying to find the right tone and the right balance of having references and features of Ukrainian culture, but also making sure the home is welcome to all and also reflective of a building of its time. So one thing that's actually interesting, the exterior of the building is actually inspired by contemporary Ukrainian architecture. Some of the precedents we looked at were the Catholic University in Lviv, which is a very dynamic and interesting facade. So we're looking not just at the historic cultural references to the Ukraine, but also what's going on with contemporary Ukrainian art and design. There's also a number of subtle features where we're working with in terms of like things like interior design, wall graphics, murals, and patterns on glass and on fences that are going to reference things like Ukrainian paper art, traditional grass fences. And I'm sorry, Oli, you'll have to help me remember the proper names for these things. I don't know if grass fences is the right word, but woven fences.
Ukrainian Vietnamki.
Thank you. And paper art, is there a proper word for that?
Vietnamki, yeah. That's
okay, yeah. And of course, careful and judicious and subtle use of things like blue and yellow, and images of sunflowers, wheat fields. We're working through some image selection of things like that. And again, try not to be too. We don't want to paint the whole building like the Ukrainian flag, but we want there to be a number of references. And if you notice in the renderings of the courtyards, that's part of them. We have some very subtle blue and yellow trim detailing around the windows in the courtyard.
Thank you. I know the team has worked hard at trying to just unlock a few of those subtle details along the way in the design. So I think it'll turn out nice.
Well, sorry, Gary, I neglected to mention the spiritual space as well, which is focused to specifically to Ukrainian Catholic culture.
And we are planning to have Ukrainian artwork next to the entrance, next to the canopy, still in discussion.
Yeah, many of those details take time to sort out. They involve working with artists and that sort of thing.
Perfect. Massimo, you may have touched on this a little bit, but tell us a bit more on how you're making life as normal as possible for residents and staff at the seniors' residence beside the construction site. Sorry.
So what we've been able to do is we've been able to install our hoarding in a manner that has been able to give the residents more space. along that north kind of ring road there, we installed the fence and gave the residents more space, and we've been able to maintain that kind of little playground area right on the what would that be, the northwest side of that entry point. So again, we try to maintain as much of the existing facility and give it back to the residents. But we wanted also to create barriers to make people aware that once you go outside these barriers, we don't want you to go outside these barriers, because you need to be cognizant of the construction activities that are there. Again, we're going to work with the facility, and if need be, we can come in and talk to staff and residents. If there's any concerns, we will address them. But it's part of what we're there to do. We've got a job that we've got to finish, but we also want to be mindful to give the residents as much space as possible so that they can go for their walks. The one thing that the number of times I was at the facility prior to us starting actual construction was the number of residents that would use the walkways and walk the orchards, right? And visit all the little gazebos that were there and stuff like that. It was beautiful. It's a beautiful piece of property. And you can see how, as a resident, you fell in love with the place, because it is on the west side of that property. It was beautiful. Like, it's the trees, and if my dad was alive, he'd probably be climbing the trees and eating a few of the apples if possible. But yeah, no, it's we try our best, and we're cognizant of trying to give as much space as possible to the residents. It will be a lot of give and take. There will be a time where, once we start doing the work on the south side, we're going to be working on both ends of the property, right? So you'll see construction activities, but you got to remember, we're trying to get finished as quickly as possible, so that then we're out of the way, and then you get to enjoy both facilities and the beautiful landscape that Matt and his design team have thought of, and we're going to try to fulfill it so that you have a beautiful campus for the next 50 years.
Great. I know you talked a lot about the residents and making sure that their life was still in check and not affected. But I know in the last couple of months, there's been very high dialogue between Percon and the staff of the existing retirement home. And that's just coordinating things like logistics of the food coming in and the garbage going out, and just making sure that your fencing or your roadway doesn't interfere with theirs, and giving as much lead time as possible. So I see it firsthand how your team really wants to use communication to alleviate some of the staff anxiety. So that's great.
Thank you.
Next question, Matt. I saw it in your presentation on parking. I think you mentioned 74 parking stalls, but will the new building provide enough parking space for staff and visiting families?
Yes, it's important to bear in mind that the residents, for the most part, won't be needing a parking spot. It really is for the staff and the visitors. So yeah, there are 74 new parking spots. That's actually almost 50% more than the minimum required by the municipality under zoning. So we're definitely providing additional parking.
Great, thank you. Olia, just to touch base, we probably got 5 minutes left. I'll continue with the questions, but it's quite clear that we won't get through all the questions here, so we'll respond.
Yeah.
All right, next question.
There's one question for you. What excites you most on the Ivan Franko Homes project?
I think for me, it's the team collaboration, the amount of effort and the amount of energy that people have put into the project in the last sort of 10 months, because it was really on a fast track to get all the approvals in place, whether that was the city, the government, financing, the design. selecting Massimo and his team and getting the sub-trades to tender. It's been a phenomenal process to be a part of. It's been exhausting, but just to see the amount of effort that everyone's putting in as a team it's really nice to be a part of. Really, really nice to be a part of the Ivan Franco team. I think that's the biggest thing for me. Massimo, your firm is a family-owned company with roots in the Italian community. Please share what attracted you to our project.
You know, Italian, Eastern European, like we're all very much a family dynamic group of people, right? My father was a diesel mechanic, and he had his office in Mississauga. So when the project came out, honestly, Matt's team is what attracted us to the project. At the time when we had submitted our RFP, I think we were working on 2 projects, Matt, total of about 350 beds. And Matt and Jordan reached out and said, hey, we've got this project over here. It's kind of similar to what you guys have done in the past. Would you be interested? And I said, sure. And when we got the documents, we really spent the time to dissect this project and create and pass along how our vision, what we thought our vision would help in the project. I'm a very passionate type of person, and I think that comes from being Italian and you know, the upbringing that we had. We want to help better the community and Mississauga. Like, we're 10 minutes, we're in Toronto, right? So to this facility, it's a 10-minute drive for us, right? So being close to home was attractive to us. And then when we met the rest of the team, Gary, George, Olia, there was a synergy at that interview. I can't explain it. Like, it was as if we gelled together. And quite honestly, I think Larry, my general superintendent, said it best. He said, you know, if we were in there another 5 minutes, maybe we would have been shaking hands at that interview. I think we all got along. And to your point, Gary, we really were a group of passionate people, and we're in it to be successful, right? Matt's in it to design a building that at the end of the day is going to be a feather in his cap for his firm. We've got the same goals as well. We want to help better Ivan Franco. We want to help better the city of Mississauga. And we just want to have something that in 20 to 30 years, we can drive by and say, hey, you know what? We've successfully completed that project, and we have a repeat client.
And kudos to you and the G team, because we know that the ministry not only checks in with you guys on our project, but checks in on sort of the overall sector, let's say, and to get your feedback, to get your insight. We can really tell that the ministry people really value your team and G's team's insights. And so that's kind of kudos to you guys. We know that we have the right team on the bus here. So
thank you.
I think, Oli, we have one
Thanks.
more, or it will be 8 o'clock. I'm not sure on your timing. One more question, or
9. We can answer those questions offline and send to all of our participants. And we actually greatly appreciate all your questions. That's a lot.
It's great that the again, showing how you know, people's and families' interest in the project it's phenomenal here. It's really nice to see. So again, just to sort of end the Q&A, again, Matt and Massimo, thank you for your time, your insights. You know, the Ivan Franco team really appreciates you guys setting aside your evening here to explain the project and give as much detail as you can. So thank you again.
Thanks for having us.
Thank
most
you very
welcome.
much.
Happy to be here, and we would be
Max.
happy to answer any questions that after on offline, as you suggest, Olia. You can get them to us, so I'll make sure that they get answered.
Thank you very much, Matt, Massimo, and Gary. And we thank all of our donors and our supporters for all their support and help. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Have a great evening. Na dobranic.